Hello guys, thank you for coming to check out this video. And today we are going to be talking about testing, and it's going to be focusing on test cases and how we can use Testsuite to run our test cases. So which means that we are going to be building something like this. So the format is going to be having the customer, then we have the admin, and each of them we have their own test cases as we can see, and for the admin also, so we have the test case to assign role, and these are the test cases for that. And also for delete customer, so we just have one to delete the customer. And we can see we have test suites, which will allow us to actually run all the test cases together. So the idea is that we also have what we call the sanity test suite. So in that case, we want to be able to check everything that we have here in the sanity test suite. And when we come down, we have the functional test suite. So the idea is to check everything, all the test cases that goes to the admin in the functional test suite. Then we have the master test suite. So for the master test suite, it's going to allow us to actually run all our test cases, which we have in two different components. It's going to allow us to run them together as one. So let's jump into coding and see what I mean by all this. So the first thing we have to do, of course, is to create a components, which we actually want to put the test cases. So the first thing I'm going to do is to right click on this folder, which I already created. So right here in my Python, so I'm gonna right click on that, and this will give me a new. So what I want to do is to create a Python package. So I'm gonna click on that. So this Python package, I'm going to call it uh, customer. So as we can see from the diagram, so it's going to be customer. So see here, customer. So we click on that. So now that we have the customer, the next thing I want to do is to create a test case login and test case sign up, right? So these are the two things we need to do now. So in order to do that for the customer, we are going to right click on the package. So here, then we come down and we create a new Python file. So right here we can see that. So I'm going to click on that. So now I want to name this. So the first one I'm going to create is test case, and it's going to be underscore login, right? So this is the first one I want to create now. So test case login. So we have that here, and I'm going to click enter. So we have test case login. So if you go back to the diagram, so right here in the diagram, the next one is to create a test case sign up. So we can quickly do that, right? Then in the test right here, I'm going to right click again, then come down and go to Python file, click on that, then we create test case, and we say sign up, click enter. So now we have these two test case file. So if we go back here, we see that the test case login has two test cases. So we can see that right here. Test login by email and test login by Google. So which means that we need to go back to the test case login file and create those test cases. So I'm going to click right inside that file. And inside that file now, we can see we have nothing right here. So which means that we need to start creating those test cases. And the first thing you have to do is to make sure you import the unit test, because this will allow you to actually create your unit test. And after that, we want to create a class. So in order for us to create the class, we use the class like this. So we create a class, and let's call this class test, the test on login. So since we want to test the login functionality, and we need to inherit the unit test. So dot test case. Then after that, we we define our test cases using functions. So the first one is going to be, as we talked already, is going to be test login by email. So let's write that by email. Then it's going to take in self. Then we come down. As a matter of fact, we are going to make this a very simple one, a very basic one, which means that, okay, sorry about that. I needed to close this one, so let's close that. So we are going to make it a very simple one. And what I mean by that is that we are not going to be building any core functionality for the application to be tested. So the whole idea is to let you understand how you can have your test cases and how you can use your test suite to run all the test cases. So whatever application that you want to build, this logic is still going to apply. So what I'm going to do now is to just have some print statements to explain this pattern. So now what I want to say here is that this is test. This is a test. Or let's say this test is for email login. Just to keep things simple again. And now that we have a print statement, so here I'm just going to say serve dot assert true, and here I'm going to pass in true. So we have the first test case, and we can create the second test case, of course. So here I'm going to say the second test case according to the diagram is to log in by Google. So let's do that. I'm going to go back right here into the login. And right here, we are going to have a new method, and it's going to be test uh, login. So here we have by, and here we have Google, right? So login by Google. And after that, we want to have a print statement to tell us what we are testing. And this test is for Google login. Okay, and right here we just want to say serve dot assert. So let's assert true, and here I'm just gonna pass in true. So now that we have that, so the next thing that I want to do is to basically have my if logic right here. So I'm gonna say if underscore underscore. So here we have name underscore underscore is equal to, right here we are going to have the double quotes. So we have main underscore underscore, and after that we are going to use the unit test to get to the main. So now that we have something like this, we of course can run this code and see what is going on. So if I decide to run the login by the login test case login that we have here. So let's see what we have. So now that we run that, we can see that we run two tests in the seconds. And the two tests that we are running is the test login by email and test login by Google. So as a matter of fact, we can see that the two tests pass at the moment because we have all the green checked. We can see that right here. And if we go down a little bit, we are going to see the test that we actually passed in for us to know the type of test that we are running. So here we are running for test the login by email, and we can see the print statement printing this for us. And when we run for the login by Google, we can also see that right here. So which means that everything is fine with the login that we are trying to test at the moment. We are able to run the test. So what if we now go to the admin? So here we also have an admin. So let's try to expand that so that we can see clearly. So in the admin section, also we have test case assign role. We have test case delete customer. So let's quickly do that also and create the test cases for the admin. So which means I also need another component. I'm going to call it components. Okay. So here we can create that. So use the Python package for that. So we click on that and right here we put in the name. So we call it the admin. So now that we have that, so the next thing I want to do, of course, is to create those files for our test cases. And in order to do that, you choose Python file. So go to new Python file. And the first one is going to be test case assign rule, as we can see from the diagram. So test case, and right here, I'm going to say assign, assign. Then we have the role. So click on enter. So we have that. So if we go back to the diagram again, right here, so we have one more file to create. And this file is going to be test case delete customer. So let's do that. So right click, new, Python file. Then right here, we're going to say test case. And right here, we're going to say delete. And right here, we're going to have customer. So test case delete customer dot py. So going back to the diagram again, so right here we can see for the assign rule, we have two uh, test cases, and for the delete, we have one. So let's try to create that. So I'm going to go back to the test case assign rule. So in that case, we need to basically do exact thing that we did before by first of all importing the unit test. So I'm going to say import unit test. And after that, we have to create a class because under the class is where we're going to have all our test cases. And the class name is going to be something that will make sense to what we are trying to do here. So it's going to be like test on assign role. So let's do that. So test on assign, and here we're going to have role. And in this case, we have the unit test dot test case. So after that, we are going to have the method, which is going to be for our test cases. So in that case, the method is going to be the test case that we are talking about. So now that we create our class, so we need test cases for them. And the one we are expecting is test assign HR role and test assign developer role. So if we go back to test case assign role, let's create that. So test assign right here, let's say HR role, and right here we have it to be safe. And the next thing is to just print it. So we use print, and right here we say this is a test for the HRO assignment. Okay, and after that we can just say save that assets, and let's put true and passing true. Okay, then right after that we still have one more test to create. So this test case is going to be to test assign developer. So it's going to be developer role, right? So we have that. Then we have the self. Then right after that, we just basically want to print out, and we are going to print a very simple string test. So this is a test for the developer role, just like we did for the HR. So yeah, developer role assignment. Okay, so as that's the way we did before, serve dot assert true, and right here we just pass in the true. Then after that, we want to make sure that we have the if underscore underscore. So we have name underscore underscore. Then we have double quotes, and then we have main, and we have column right here. Then we call the unit test dot main, and right here we can see that we have everything according to the diagram for the test assign role. So, which means basically if we run that test now, so assign role, if we run this test now, we should be able to see some things coming. So let's try to basically run the test for the admin. So for the admin, I ran the test and we can see test on assign role. We have run two tests in this and they all passed. So we can see those test string right here. So now that we have two different components with their own different test cases, we are not done yet. So let's take a look at the diagram. So this diagram, we still need one more test case for test case 5 for the admin. And okay, we already have it created, but we still need to create a test case for it. So which means that we are going to go right inside a file, and again, we are going to import unit test, right? So we import a unit test, and right after that, we are going to go to the class. Then we are going to create a test for that, and we are going to say test on the lead customer. So this is what we're going to call this. Of course, we need to also inherit from the unit test. So we go to the test case itself, and now we define the test case with a function. So test here is going to be delete and customer. Okay, so right after that, we are going to just use a print statement, and right here we just going to say this is a test for deleting the customer. So right after the line, we are going to use serve dot assert true, and here we're going to say true. Okay, and now that we have that, that's the only one we need there. And here we are going to use a if logic again. So equal to, and right here we have underscore underscore main underscore underscore. Then we have the colon. We use the unit test. Then get to the main, and basically this will allow us to have easy access to run our test. Now that we have this, we can of course run the delete test only and see what we have. So when we run that, we have one test run, and we can see we have this test which is coming from the deleting the customer. So if we decide to run these two tests together, so we can just run from the components, and inside that we can see we have three tests. So one belongs to the deleting and two belongs to the assign role. So we can see that right here, right? And this is for the deleting. So which means that now we have this admin and the customer is completed, right? So in this case, we of course can go into creating our test suits. If we take a look back at the diagram, so at the on the diagram. So here on the diagram, we will see that we have all this already in place. And now we have to create a test suite, and we have to use this test suite to run everything that we have in the test cases that belongs to each of these components that we can see right here. So what I'm going to do is to go back to my project, of course, and of course I can already take off some things right here. So the next thing I want to do is to create my test suite. And how do I do that? So these two components are here. I'm just going to create a test suite by also right clicking on that. And in that case, what I need is going to be Python package first. I'm going to click on that, and right here I'm going to give a name that makes sense. So let's say these are the test suites. Okay, so now that we have the test suites, so what do we want to do for the test suite? So the purpose of the test suite is to allow us to run collection of test cases. And in order to do that, let's try to see how this is working in practice. So what I'm going to do is to click on the Python file right here, as we can see. So right here, what I want to do now is to create a file name. So I'm going to say all test suite, or you can also say all test cases, but let's use all test suites in this case. So here, all test suites, we enter, and now that we have that file, so next thing again is to, of course, make sure we have the unit test imported. And of course, there are some things that we have to do for us to make sure we get to some of these components that we have, because we are going to be using their test cases, right? Because we want to collect all these test cases and run them in a test suite. And in order to do that, we are not going to go directly to how we get to those files. But what I'm going to do first of all is to, of course, create the variables for all the tests that we need. So the first one is going to be test case one, which we know that we are going to need. And the second one is going to be test case two, right? And the third one is test case. I'm going to explain what I mean by all this. And the fourth one is test case 4. So we have these four test cases. And why do we have four test cases? So if we take a look at here, we can see the first one is the login. The second one is the sign up for the customer. And when we go to the admin component right here, so for the admin component, we have what we call the assign role, so which is going to be this one. If we click on that, test on assign role. And the fourth one, of course, is the delete customer. So this is the reason why we have test cases to be four right here, because these are the things that we want to collect into just one file and be able to run all the tests from these different components in one suite. So this is the purpose of the test suite, right? And in order to do that, we need to have we need to get all tests from test module. So, and for me to get the test number one, so what I'm going to do is to call the unit test dot, and we have what we call a test loader. So we are going to use that to actually load a test. So we're going to use that, and this test loader we are going to call load test from test case on that. So load test from test case, so we can see that right here, because we want to load her test from the test case. And where's the test case? So the test case now for test number one, for instance, so if you want to say we want to test on uh, we want to test on, let's say we want to call the login for as the first test case. So if we click on that, so where is the test from test case? That's the question. So this is the test case, right? this name is the test case, this name. And these are the tests that we have, right? So we want to load this. So in this case, I'm going to just call this name right inside this place. So what is the name called? So test on login. So let's put that right here. So that's the first test that we want to load. Test on login. But now we have a red line. So how do we fix this? So in order to fix this, we of course need to import directly where we are coming from or where this test on login is coming from. So test on login is coming from somewhere. It's coming from the customer component, as we can see from here. And which means that for us to get to the test on login, we need to get to test case login. So I'm going to click on that. And here we can say it says imports. And what do we want to import? So we want to import this test on login because this is where it resides. So we can see that right here. So of course I can copy it back from here and put it right here. So now we have the red line is gone. And the second one, which is going to be our test case, we can of course copy this line of code and put it right here. So here we are doing the same thing, but basically this is not going to be repeated. So here we are going to say test on, for instance, we need to check what the name is called. Okay, unfortunately, we haven't created a sign up. So let's quickly do that. So we missed that case because this is the next thing we want to basically take. Are we really sure we missed that? Test on sign up, yeah. So we created login, but sign up is missing. So for login, we can take this also instead of typing the OT now. So I'm gonna just take this one and put it into the sign up. So here we paste there. So the only thing we are going to be changing is the name, right? So again, this is for your understanding on how the test case and the test suites are working together. So if you are working on an application, then you have your logic that you want to actually test. But for you to be able to run them together, then you need to understand how you can do that. And this is why uh, this tutorial is going to help you. So this test is for email sign up. And let's say here we also have a sign up. So by Google, and right here we can just say sign up. Okay, so here we put the codes. And that's it. And here we need to make sure we correct this name. It's not going to be login. So this is going to be sign up basically. So we are good to go. Let's go back to the test suite. So test on the one we just created. So it's going to be test on sign up, right? So test on sign up. So as a matter of fact, this is not coming because we don't have it imported yet. So now let's try to import that so that the red line is going to go away. So again, the same thing we did before. Okay, so just make sure you go to the correct path and you'll be able to import that. So here we can see test case sign up, and after that we can see that we need to get to the name of test on sign up. So in that case, I'm going to say test on sign up, so we can see that right here giving us. So this is gone, that is fixed. And the next thing is to of course go for the third one, which is going to be, for example, we can choose the test on assign row. So which means that of course we can also repeat this by copying this guy, put it right here. So here we are not going to repeat this because we already have it, right? But the thing we want to do now is we are done with the customer, so let's close that. What we want to do now is to think of the assign role. So the assign role name is test on assign role. So this is what we want, right? We want to be able to load all the test cases that we have under this class, right? So what I'm going to do is to go back right here. So of course I know what I want already, so which means I can put it right here. But putting it right here is not a final solution. I need to, of course, go to the correct part so that I'll be able to see that right here. So in this case, it's not going to be customer anymore. It's going to be admin. And once we get to the admin, then we have test case assign role. Then we want to import this particular one that I just copied. So we import that, and right here the red line is gone. So test case number 4. So what is this test case number 4? Is to delete customer. And of course, again, I can copy this and put it right here. So we want to delete customer. So this customer is having what? Is having a test on delete customer. So this is what I want to call right here. So we put that right in, but still we have a red line because we haven't done the necessary thing, and which means we have to do the same thing like the one we did before at line 4. So test, but in this case it's not going to be assign role. We have to go to test case delete customer, then we are going to import test on delete customer. So let's put that right here. So now that we have that, so what do we have to do next? So the next thing we want to do is to take a look at the diagram. Okay, so let's take a look at the diagram. So in our diagram right here, so here we can see we have all test cases. We have them already. So we have them in the test suite. But now we want to have what we call the sanity test suite. So which we allow us to just run the basic part of the test, for instance. So if I go back to my all test suite, and right here after this line, I'm going to go down, and right here I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it sanity test suite. So sanity test suite is going to be equal to, so right here, unit test and dot test suite. So here we want to use the test suite. So because now we want to collectively run our test, and this is what this means. So since we want to collectively run our test, so which means that we are going to be having a list of test cases. So let's run the first one and the second test case together first of all. So let's take it as the sanity test, and here I'm going to add test case 2 right here. So now that we have something like this, we need what we call test runner, which is going to allow us to actually run this test. And in order to get to the test runner, we need to import that. We need to get that from the unit test module. So here we can see test runner. So this is what I need. And I want to be able to run. So I'm going to call run on that. And what do I want to run now? I want to run a collective, the collection of two test cases. So here I'm going to say sanity test suite. This is what I want to run. So now that I have this, if I click on run right here, so let's see what we have. So when we click on run, we are able to run 4 tests at the same time, even though these tests are not being run from their components, but we are using the test suite to run that. So we can see we are able to run the login from the email and the Google, and the sign up and the sign up. So this is a sanity test coming from the same components, and let's try to think of how we can, of course, let's try to think of how we can add more tests to our uh, how we can run more uh, other test suites from here. So what I want to do is to, of course, create a functional test suite right here. So here I'm going to say functional, I'm going to say test suite. So which is going to be equal to something. And of course, we can repeat by copying this particular line and put it right here. So, but my functional now, I want it to be, let's say we want to test for 3 and 4. So let's test for 3 and 4. So if we test for 3 and 4, in this case, we want to check if we are able to run that. So initially we run for 1 and 2 and we saw the result. So now I want to run for 3 and 4. So the result that we had before is the one we can see right here. So, but in this case now, let's try to run this again and see what the result says. So now in this case we run and we have just 3 tests because this is different, right? So we are running for test case 3 and test case 4. And these are the tests that we have in those test cases. So if I want to run the master test case, the master test suite, so based on our diagram, so let's go back there. So for the master test suite, we can see that it's going to be the combination of both the sanity test suite and the functional test suite. So which means that going back right here, I can also create a master test and the test suite. And of course, we can say we have this guy coming together. Can say we have this guy coming together. Wouldn't it, wouldn't it make sense if we can just say sanity test suite right here and functional test suite right here and run a master test suite. So let's copy that and put it right here. So if we run the test, what do we have? So let's run the test. So right here we can see we have 7 tests in these seconds. So we are able to run all the tests together at an instance. So here we just use the master test suite in order to do that. Of course, you can repeatedly put these test cases right here, but of course, it's going to be a long process, right? So since you already have all of them, so you can just grab the variables and pass it. So this is going to be the end of this tutorial. I hope you are able to understand what I'm trying to explain here. So the main purpose is for you to understand how you can run test cases from different components in test suites. So here we can see we put everything into one, even though they are coming from different components. So we have admin and we have customer. Thank you for listening. See you next time.